If we could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Normally we stand, but have a seat. I got a little bit to do, so you have to stand. No big deal. So, normally we stand now and honor our military. We can do it by sitting also, but what I want to, as I try to do, is to mention community folks that have passed. So, I want to mention Donna Neary. You might not know that name, but that's Ann Lawless's mother. Karen McCormick, a dear friend of mine, and many others. Holly Hurst. Holly was a young girl, and she's the sister of two of our employees, David and Kevin Hurst. Mel Williams, you might not recognize that name, but Mel was the fellow that we would all see almost every day on Main Street. He was blind. He had his his stick, and he would come do his errands. He would walk up from Wyatt Green, cross the highway, and you'd see him on Main Street. He'd go down to the bank, he'd go to the Grand Union, he'd go to Rite Aid, and come back. And that's sad too. And I will say something about this community. Every day I saw Mel, every day I saw people stop him. You need help. And people would get him across to the next street. He knew these buildings though. He would touch the buildings. He knew the brick. He knew the wood. So remarkable guy. So we'll miss him. And of course the shootings. It seems like every 2 weeks I have to talk about a shooting. And you're no longer safe any longer in schools and going to a concert, in a movie theater, and now a church. So I'm not sure when this is all going to end. And the last is for our veterans. We have Veterans Day coming up. We honor veterans in this community every day, but especially they're on our mind maybe today and this week leading up to Veterans Day. So a moment of silence for all of that, please. Thanks very much. Okay. So I want to, next on the agenda is to welcome guests. I see residents and some other folks, maybe not from the community, but you're here for a reason. I see in the back our county legislator, Jim DeSalvo. Not a guest, is our police chief and our highway superintendent that are here tonight, and our attorney. Any comments on the agenda items?
Speak at the appropriate time.
Well, not today. This is the appropriate time for an agenda item.
Okay.
You're talking about Restore New York Grant Round 5.
Yes. If you don't mind, I'm going to stay seated. I can maybe kind of turn around.
No, that's okay. You know what? I just want, it's not, I agree. The only thing I want is the voice to be picked up.
Yeah.
So here, sit here.
Yeah, that's good.
And maybe we can get the voice,
Perfect.
Sean? Okay.
Okay.
How is your knee?
Broken? Yeah, kneecap. Okay. First of all, thank you to the board for this opportunity and the opportunity to speak on behalf of the possibility of the village to apply for a Restore New York Communities Initiative grant, which is given by the Empire State Development Corporation for the purpose of revitalizing the economies locally. They want local economies to thrive, to be revitalized and reshaped for the 21st century. So we are very fortunate, and especially in terms of our being so strapped with public money through local taxes to be able to really invest heavily in this sort of opportunity. We have this at our doorsteps. I am working as a volunteer, as is Olga Anderson, to do a lot of work to prepare a proposal for the village to apply for. We have identified 11 buildings. The Empire State Development Corporation has approved our letter of intent, which means we have been given their green light to go ahead with an application. And between now and then, if the village board chooses to do so, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. This project with these buildings is more complex and complicated than the one we already have of taking paint off of brick buildings and repointing. This grant can apply to interior and exterior work, things having to do with energy efficiency upgrades, quality restoration of historic features of buildings. So this is taking a lot more communication with building owners to identify, first of all, what is within the grant parameters, what they need, and what will have the greatest impact on what is the purpose of the grant to make the community one that attracts not only tourists, but the younger generation to come here and live and play and have things to do here, and even as we progress, create new jobs. So there are a lot of variables in, we're trying to communicate with the owners and identify a 150-word description for each building.
Yeah,
I can make it.
I only wanna, I want it to be like a few minutes though.
Okay.
Because we have an agenda and we have a busy night.
Okay,
But I want you to say what needs to be said.
okay, let me stick to the abbreviated notes. I did ask the Empire State Development Corporation 3 questions that have come up, either through the board or building owners. One related to some of the building owners. They need immediate repairs for buildings not to be damaged over the winter. So in general, if you put a shovel in the ground, it disqualifies the building. But in this case, if some of the building owners need immediate repairs, they can do them, but they won't be reimbursed. Now, the questions that relate to more of things that have come through the board, one is, can businesses contribute to the 10% match that is required? The answer to that is yes. This grant is, however, designed for the state. The state puts state tax money back here. They want evidence that the village entity, as representative of all the people, also takes ownership of financial investment in economic development. So that means that they are looking at the village's willingness to put this type of investment in the future of the village forward. At the same time, they did say how it's going to be calculated is, I'm going to need help with that, but that's okay. I do know from a couple of the building owners already, they would have to take a loan out to do it. One, I don't think would be able to afford it at all. So we might want to have a discussion on, is there any kind of proportional consideration, extra consideration?
I don't know what that, what does that mean? That the village is part of the proportion?
Yeah, that some property owners would kick in the 10% and others, because of inability to pay, would not.
Yes,
That-
either be excluded or need some extra help from the village.
Or,
Yeah, no, I want you to, yes.
yeah, I've got to ask this question.
Sure.
This is a very, very complicated grant. I don't envy you and Olga preparing it. Also, I'm concerned as a board member that we've already got the other Restore New York Phase 1 for the brick buildings. Are we likely to get a second one before we do the first one? I don't want to see you spin wheels.
Honestly, I'm very openly communicating with them. It would have been better if we could have shown some activity toward actually getting the work done this year. However, we were a top contender
For the
in the
big-
downtown revitalization grant. While they don't give us a number of points for favorability, they do give us favorability, and that I know. I think we are, if we move forward, and what I have offered in any communications or questions, I said, we have a new administration, and the majority is a new administration, and, you know, it is shovel-ready. When we take the steps, it will get done, and it's set to go. And I think that's been accepted positively if we do move forward with it. It would not bode well for us at all to have that grant, have another one, and then not move forward.
Yeah, this is my biggest concern. In my old agency, we generally did not award grants to communities until they finished the first one. And I just,
There is a wording in the grant itself last time and this time. The expectation is that the project is shovel-ready. And this type of grant through Empire State Development Corporation as one state agency is designed for fast track, so there will be results. It's not like some other grants where, okay, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, you see action. This is designed for that. I think we have done enough laying of ground and good communication that eyes are on us. And I think it's a good opportunity for us. I think we're still in good shape, but we are going to have to do our part in the spring, following through. I don't think it would be good if we go for 2 grants and don't show, yes, we're following through.
I just have a question. What happens if, because these are old buildings, and we're dealing with cement and everything else. What happens when you start getting into it and you find out, well, wait a minute, this building's actually decaying here?
It's what?
Decaying, the cement is just, where do you go from there?
Well, what we did last time and what we will do this time, and I'm very happy to say, we have 2 representatives for one of the buildings that's very interested, the Masons building. In the last grant, we are dealing with some buildings that are very old and very historic. And honestly, what I did, and I'm capable of doing this, if I have a will, I have a way. I learned what expertise is necessary. We had restoration specialists come in to the best of their ability, look at the buildings, pointing out things that I don't think a normal contractor would look at. Like, well, you can take the paint off of this and you can plaster up the mortar a little bit, but the bottom of this whole retaining wall of the building is flat.
I understand what you're saying, but has this already been explored?
We will do that. We have until December 15th to do the final. It's taking an enormous amount of hours on the part of Olga, and where we are now is seriously starting to communicate with the building owners.
You're
to
talking
learn.
about the 11. I think Merv is talking about, the first grant.
Right.
Oh, I am just confident, as confident as a person can be, if we can sole source the bidding, that we have found the appropriate experts to deal with it.
But if you find something that needs, let's say there's cemented damage, or there's structural damage, that's gonna have to be dealt with.
Yes, what we did with the last grant, we had the village engineer at the time, the contractor removing the paint, and the contractor who would deal with any mortar repair. They looked at what the mortar is made of, what type of brick we're dealing with. They were both able to evaluate the structural integrity of what they would be dealing with. And of course, they wouldn't just proceed if they found a problem. But we dealt with state historic preservation, the Office of State Historic Preservation. Of course, we had to seek for review and environmental review. So,
Barbara, let me say a couple of things about Restore One. I call them Restore One, Restore Two.
right,
I just want, and I'm not saying you said this, but I want you to know that the village board, all of us sitting up here, did not hold back on Restore One. I inherited a folder full of paperwork that was not completed. Let's be, and I don't do things that way. And so with the village clerk trying to help me bring me up to speed, which sometimes takes a while, and talking to Arturo, his title is Rodriguez, and he's like our guy, our go-to guy for the works for the state. There were certain steps that I think even you were surprised at.
well, I had just in all due respect of the election, not put my nose in things until the
Okay,
time.
so there has to be these meetings with the board in Albany. And I kind of think we thought that was gonna be done April, May of last year, but as Arturo said, we weren't ready to go before the board.
And
Okay.
I
Okay.
kind of just
Well, I
put it
just
to
want-
them that
Okay,
way. that-
and the bidding process, and with the village, we have to have more than one bid. Now, if there's only one bidder, we have to explain why it's a specialty. We can do that.
Right.
It's not unheard of.
Right.
There is a cost to the village that was not put in by the previous budget, which has nothing to do with this up here, okay? A lot of money. I don't know, we don't have that money. This 2% tax cap that we always stay under, there's not $50,000 somewhere.
That's the other question I asked Empire State Development about this round.
Well, wait a minute, you say this round, you mean two?
Two.
Okay, I don't wanna, so let me just finish.
Okay.
So we don't have that money, that we know. You know that too. You were here for that particular budget meeting, right around the corner where we sat. The other thing is that I just found out from Arturo is, and I'm not saying this does not kibosh any deal, I'm just, something new that I just learned, and I want the board to know, if the projection is that the professionals went around and looked at these buildings and said, okay, to do your building is $10,000. And it ends up being $12,000. Arturo told me the village has to pay for that difference.
Well, my concern now is this. Last year, when we went around, those were fixed bids by those contractors at that time. If we had been able to proceed in the spring and get this job done this year, those would have been at least through sole source bidding or however the bidding would work. That is what we based.
Yeah, I'm not worried about I'm not
Yeah.
worried, my point is not what they said the cost would be for this building, the Masons building. But if the Masons building, what is the address of the Mason, what's the name on the Mason building?
314, Your Honor.
Oh, wait a minute, that's for round two.
Yeah, we're not in round one.
Right.
I'm starting to confuse myself. Okay, so anyway, it doesn't matter. Here's the buildings that, one of Peter Lamb's buildings, two of Peter Lamb's buildings. Sophie Greenberg's, us old timers know that, Sophie Greenberg's building. So Sophie Greenberg's building, sandblasting 3,500, repair 26,500.
Yes, and those.
Okay, so let's say it's a total of 30,000. Let's say it's 35,000 when all is said and done. We have to pay the 5,000.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because it would not have been that way if the work could have gotten done this year. I mean,
No, I don't understand what you're saying. All I'm saying is, you mean to tell me that if it was done this year, there would have been no secrets behind the paint or the concrete? Where next year there will be?
Barbara, I think what
Barbara,
we're
help
all
me.
getting at is that whenever you're dealing with historic preservation, old buildings,
I know exactly what you're saying.
especially when you're talking about repointing brick that has
But you
been
understand what I'm saying.
painted, the painted brick doesn't breathe the way a normal brick breathes.
Yes, I had many discussions and they looked at the buildings as to which they thought.
But in all likelihood, irrespective of when we start this, the speculation about how much the repair work after the stripping of the paint, I think is a controllable cost. Where I'm really, really worried is when you start getting into repointing brick. And we're doing this on private property at village taxpayer expense. How do we cap those costs if after the building is denuded, you find worse
I
conditions?
understand your question now, where you're going. Okay, and this was discussed also. We need to get back into communication with those building owners as well. What they had been told, but this needs to be in writing, and before we do the work, things can be ironed out with perfect understanding. We had said the first phase of the project is removal of paint. With whatever money is left over from the total amount of the possible grant, it will be divided up among buildings to repair mortar.
So we're not
Okay.
committed to do the whole repair.
What they were told is if there is any cost beyond that, they would be responsible. Now, this requires this new administration getting back in communication, clarifying again, and, moving forward on that.
That,
Does that answer your question?
that's helpful, if we can cap our exposure.
Yes. And the way, then what we did is we went back to the mortar restoration people. And we went building by building and got estimates. And honestly, I chewed them down many tens of thousands of dollars. I said, if of course it has to go through a bid, but I advocated for the village and I said, if this work is going to get done, it has to be done within this amount of money, so how much can you really come down on this? And it got within the $500,000 that way. So in the bidding, yes, unless we can do the same thing, that's how the project was designed cost-wise though.
Okay, so that I understand what you just said, did you say that the property owner, through a written agreement, would pick up any cost over and above what the grant can't pay for?
That was discussion. What is in writing and what would be in writing with this new grant is that what Empire State requires. and
I'm
that
sorry,
is-
Barbara, but now we're going into two, right?
Yeah, we gotta
No,
say.
one and two. It's the
It
same
applies
for
to
one
both?
and two. Yes, I'm sorry. It is an affidavit of permission. It's a very simple form where the village clerk verifies that the owner, who claims he is the owner, and the owner actually gives the village permission for oversight as this work is done, to, you know, have
I understand, but get to the money.
So,
You're not-
okay,
you're not-
well, hold on, wait.
Any-
So,
any-
I'm sorry, so oversight, so we have to pay an inspector to be on the job. Is that included in this cost?
Empire, okay, that, for grant one, it was different than the possibility is for grant two.
Okay.
Okay, but for both, I have asked for clarification from the top in Albany. They said they don't care if we have an engineer on site. This is their words. From their point of view, they have a project manager and they can deal with who our project manager is. They do, that is their words that they said. So with this one, knowing that that has been an issue in round one since there were not funds allocated for someone to be hired for the work phase as an engineer. I did ask if that is possible this time, if we include it in the costs as we work up the grant proposal, and they said yes. Now, it's going to be difficult and have to go back to them, because when the costs are broken out per building, how do you break out the overall cost of an engineer per building if it's a flat fee? So, but that can be worked out.
I have another quick question. So, you know, I'm looking at this, and the last one that I seen, Barbara, we were over 500,000. This one, it seems, this is for number one. It seems we're under 500,000 now on this one, 497,000. Is this the right figures?
That's it.
Great. So with that being said, what about, some of these buildings are on Main Street, and obviously there's sidewalks that we're gonna need pedestrian protection put up. Is that cost also included in this?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and I just want to go back to my same question again, and so yes or no if you can. I know that's hard.
Okay.
I have a problem with it too. So if there's a cost overrun on any particular building, it's the village taxpayer who makes the difference up. Round one, that's all I want to know. Well, I mean, there's no place, I mean, this is what Arturo had said to me, it was it was Friday, because I tried to get ready for this meeting. So I called him. And again, the simple scenario was, it's $10,000, but it comes to 12. He said the village pays the difference. In other words, the village pays the two.
Depending on how we do it. Olga and I have, she's a project manager and has done over
Okay.
$1 million projects.
All right.
Arranging when work is done and, I
Okay.
don't know, legally, according to the police department and public works, if volunteers can help, but we have
I think
volunteered.
the biggest thing is capping the village's exposure to the numbers, that if it's estimated to cost 10,000, 10,000 has been allocated from the grant. There's gotta be an understanding with the property owner that if it goes up to 12,000, the property owner is going to be responsible for that additional 2. Can we do that?
With round two. With round one, personally, I think it would be unfair because, well, to the degree that I explained before with the mortar repair, it has already been explained, if it goes over what is budgeted here, you will be responsible.
Okay, that's the crux of what we're
Yeah,
asking.
and we would just need to clarify with round two, those things with the building owners in advance to be in good faith.
So Barbara, just, for me right now, round two is way on the outside. But just to speak about round one for right now. So if it goes over the cost of the estimate that it's going to cost to redo the building, it's not a guarantee yet that the owner of that building is going to pay, or have to pay, whatever that cost is. And it's not really the village that has to pay either yet. So what leads that building, if it gets to one point and all of a sudden they say, well, wait a second now, there's a lot of work that has to be done on this.
More than we thought. Recognized.
Exactly, so what happens with this building now? I mean, does it sit out there until somebody says, okay, I'll pay? Or the village is gonna say, well, we're not gonna pay, and the owner says, well, I don't have the money. Then what do you do?
Well, with the communications last year,
I mean, and I'm not trying to, I just wanna be sure, because these buildings, especially as old as they are, you get to a point on the building, and I've been through a lot of jobs in years. There's always something that comes up. So that expense part, and we're talking about just the expense of one building, and there's 11 of these?
for round one,
Right.
there are 8.
8.
So there's 8 buildings, say half of those have a problem. There's really no guarantee or reinsurance to the taxpayers or anybody that that building is gonna be completed. At least I'm not hearing of anything.
Actually, Barbara, must all of the work be completed? Is that in the contract? In other words,
The scope of work
Mhm.
has been identified,
okay,
yes, that work will be done.
Right.
However, discussions also were very clear with these experts that they would let us know, say, oh, between a year later, this building is really more at risk than I bargained for, or I see a problem I didn't see. Both of the experts that I dealt with did very thorough walk around and measurements and looking at the paint, as I said, and the types of brick and all kind of considerations. And at that point, we're confident that they could move forward with what
With
is
these
at
numbers.
hand.
right, with
With
these
what
numbers.
is at hand,
Mhm.
yes. And as I said, the only other thing I can add to that at the moment is that the building owners did understand that the project could be called off if there is something unforeseen, but hopefully catch that early rather than get into a mess. Or that if the paint could be removed, priority one, and whatever money would be spent on the repair, and then, yes, they could be left.
Yeah, and just so the public knows, and I just, I want to try to be as transparent as possible. In the round one grant, which, I applaud you for getting, all the hard work you did on that. But one of the buildings, these are some of the figures. The lowest price to repair one of the buildings is a little over $17,000. And then there's 2 that are over $100,000. One's almost over $140,000. And the other range in the $30,000 to $50,000 more. So that's a lot of work that these buildings are going to be getting. And I just want the public to know, that, for lack of a better term, that's an expensive lipstick, but it's gonna make us shine.
It's
And-
not
and-
lipstick.
Well,
it's-
I'm just saying.
Undergirding.
Undergirding, fantastic. I like that.
Yes,
I like that.
the lipstick is.
Yeah.
it's
I like
very
the lipstick's the
delicate.
paint that they put on. We're getting rid of that, right?
Yeah, we're getting rid of the
We are
Yeah.
getting buildings that will last into the
Excellent,
future.
excellent,
That-
excellent.
that-
Right, I tell you what I think needs to be done. We need to pull Elise in. So, Elise,
I agree.
soon we'll make arrangements and have a meeting. Come up during the day and we meet with Gina and myself, and anyone who wants to be there, we'll share the paperwork with you. I think you need to look at, I don't know if you call it a contract, but you need to look at the terms of the agreement. There's some great questions that both sides are asking tonight. If there's cost overrun, can the village, because that's who it is, walk away and it's up to I don't know that there's leadway, I want you to make sure there's leadway if that's the case, that would be the avenue we take. And I'm not saying it is, I don't know. But there's some good questions that don't have answers, but maybe, probably, most likely are in the, can I call it a contract? It's a contract, scope of work contract, right?
The grant has been
The grant.
awarded, so there should be a grant
Yeah.
agreement
Yeah,
that would define the terms of the grant.
Is it legal to take taxpayers' money to
No,
address issues that might be on a private
Not-
building?
generally,
That's the question that we need to ask.
no.
So-
However, the nature of this grant takes state taxpayer money and gives it to the village, and it is designed to be private-public partnership, which is sort of strange.
so let me close this down a little bit. I can tell you from the comments I'm hearing, including myself, there's no one up here that doesn't want the grant. People in this room have heard me say, you don't paint brick. That's why it's brick. You paint wood. You don't paint brick. I'm sorry that the village hall was painted a long time ago, before me, but it was painted. So we're all for this, but at least we need to bring you in, and this is not our normal grant.
No.
We get a lot of grants,
Yeah,
but this is not the norm.
it's totally not.
It should be pointed out that the one painted brick building in the village that was ineligible was this
It
one.
was-
Yeah.
yeah,
No
building.
municipal buildings.
Now, my concern is that there is a December 15th deadline for number 2, which means the application has to be in. And backing backwards, we need a village resolution to move forward. Then there has to be a public hearing. Then it is recommended, it's part of the grant, to go before the zoning and planning boards and get letters of support. It doesn't require a full vetting of the zoning and planning boards, it's just that we're in compliance with the adopted village plan. So there is like backing out of them trying to.
You know, Barbara, this is a very unusual, a very uneasy spot to be in. Because we just spent 40 minutes on number 1. And now we're ready to do number 2, which is even bigger. Bigger, twice as big.
Could Olga and I offer an information meeting, and maybe if our attorney wants to come in, maybe board members, I don't know if that's allowed, and information.
I don't think there's like, you know, there's only like one bottom line here to me is the money part. You know, where's the money gonna come from? Especially on the buildings, if somebody says, I don't have it, we're not gonna get it from the taxpayer. What's gonna happen with that building, and how's that work gonna continue? That's my biggest issue, and it's a huge issue of mine with this. And it's not just because of tonight, when this project was first said, I've actually raised this question, and I'm still getting the same answer that I did months ago. So that's where I'm at with this.
All right, you know, I guess I'll, it's not the first time, I guess I'll be the bad guy. So Barbara, what I'm thinking is that we need to do 1 before we can jump on 2. And I'm not even sure about 1 with the questions, we gotta get these are serious questions on both sides. And we have to get those answers.
I think, my feeling
Okay,
is if
so-
we all meet, that these can be clarified.
If we all meet on what, 1 or 2?
2, they're actually
but-
2 separate,
I understand, that's why I keep
Projects.
asking you what you're talking, are you talking about 1 or 2? Now you're talking about 2.
and we have good buildings. One building, for example, is, according to the grant, can get $1.5 million. 2 other buildings, $900,000. Now, that is major, major restoration that these buildings need, and that would help our village.
Yeah, no, but it's
But
a $1 million grant.
Wait. But you just said $1,900,000, so 10% of that is $190,000 that the village board needs to try to come up with, or have some type of agreement that the property owners would pay that. That's a
That-
lot of money.
And that is possible. I
Okay.
already have the answer to that it can be passed on to building owners. Although the state does prefer that the villages show ownership financially too. But it
Okay.
can be passed on, yes, in this grant.
Yeah. Okay, so when we get down, okay, so we just had a great discussion.
Yes.
We did, and I thank you. Your knowledge is valuable. You have the knowledge, we have the questions. So let's continue the meeting, and when we get down here to that one, we'll take care of it. And in the meantime, as I said, my commitment tonight is that the village board will meet with the village attorney, the village clerk, and go through grant one, restore one. Okay? Thank you. Okay, new business, you have minutes before you from October the 16th, 2017, and October the 30th, 2017. Need approval for the minutes, please.
I make a motion to approve them.
Second.
Motion by trustee Howard, second by trustee Livesey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next, Barbara, this is another one of your projects, I think, or somehow you were involved in it.
Yes.
The electric vehicle charging station. And so we know where it's going to go, we know what it looks like. What you have before you, board, is the local law that will be introduced. At least you did this, right? Okay. So this is what we'll introduce, this local law, the first 2 pages. And it's shortly, if I could say, it's an amendment to our current meter parking, car parking.
Vehicle.
Okay, that's
Yes.
basically what it
It
is.
is,
And so I'll read this resolution, the Village of Highland Falls resolution introducing local law and provide for a public hearing to the amending of chapter 108 of the village code to add electric vehicle charging station. Be it resolved that the introductory local law entitled amending chapter 108 of the village code to add electric vehicle charging station. B, and it is hereby introduced by Mayor D'Onofrio before the Board of Trustees of the Village of Highland Falls, County of Orange, State of New York. And be it further resolved that copies of the proposed local law be laid upon the desk of each member of the Board of Trustees, which it has. Be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees shall hold a public hearing on said proposed local law at the Village Hall, 303 Main Street, Highland Falls, New York, at 7 p.m. on November the 20th, which is our next meeting, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so our next meeting in 2 weeks, at 7 p.m., we'll have a public hearing on this local law. Be it further resolved that the village clerk shall publish or cause to be published a public notice in the official newspaper of the Village of Highland Falls no later than 5 days prior thereto. And I'll make the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Murphy, any questions?
Actually, I do, but I don't know if we need to bring it up here, or I can just bring it up with the attorney. And it's based on, we're gonna be charging for these spots?
That's
Right?
another time, yeah.
Okay, because when we get the heavy snow, that this charging station is in the municipal lot, that those spots are free now. But when we put in the charging station, those spots are gonna have some type of a meter system. So I just wanna make a provision when we do this, so we don't have to amend it, that during, snow emergencies, that there won't be a charge to park in those spots. Can I do that? Can we do that?
You don't need to omit, if it affects when and how much, that can be done by resolution after the local law has been adopted.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion, I made a motion, Charlie seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Sidewalk replacement in front of 302 Main Street, which actually is across the street from the Village Hall. You have the quotes there, is there a recommendation?
I recommend F, C, and C.
Is it, Brian, is that a motion?
Yes, I make a motion.
You know, this is a tough one, because we got 3 local guys here, and they're all great guys. I'll second Brian's.
Seconded by trustee Livesey. May I have roll call?
Trustee Howard,
Aye.
trustee Livesey,
Aye.
trustee Ramus,
Aye.
trustee Murphy,
Abstain.
Mayor D'Onofrio.
Abstain. Motion carries. Thanks, guys. The deal is to get the sidewalk done.
Let's get that done. Get that done. We
Yeah.
are so lucky right now with that sidewalk, that nobody's hurt themselves.
Okay, next on the agenda is a recommendation to surplus a Chevrolet dump truck. I guess that means the year 2000? It's my recommendation that we declare the 2000 Chevy dump truck surplus and advertise for public bids.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by trustee Livesey, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Howard, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next I want to, is there anyone here that is the owner or represents 12 Cooks Lane? 12 Cooks Lane is a property maintenance notice for a public hearing. Okay, I'll open up the public hearing on 12 Cooks Lane. It's a overgrowth in the front of the house encroaching on the sidewalk. The owner or anyone representing the owner is not here tonight. You see the appropriate paperwork that was sent to the property owner. Again, is there anyone here that wants to speak on 12 Cooks Lane? If not, I'll close the public hearing. In the paperwork you have before you is a resolution that will allow us to go into the property and clean it up, put it on the taxes, and the village will get their money back. If I could have a motion to approve the resolution pertaining to 12 Cooks Lane.
Make a motion.
Motion by trustee Livesey, is there a second? Trustee Howard, all in favor?
Aye.
I have to have roll call, I apologize. May I have roll call?
Trustee Howard.
Aye.
Trustee Livesey.
Aye.
Trustee Ramus.
Aye.
Trustee Murphy.
I,
Mayor D'Onofrio.
Aye. Motion carries, thank you so much.
Joe, while
Yeah.
we're on this, could I ask,
Mhm.
is there any question? Elise, how can we get the building department to include in this, all of the past violations over the years? Can we do that?
You mean of that building? I mean of that address?
Yeah, every address that comes
Yeah.
before us.
In the resolution,
Um,
or?
Well,
do
just
you
saying for
want a
knowledge
report?
for the-
Just for our knowledge, so we know how many times they have been.
You could ask the building department for that.
We don't have to do anything special to get that done
I
at
think
his
you
office
should just ask him.
first. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that file is, I'm sure that can be put together. It's probably not gonna be something he can just
Okay.
Sometimes you don't need an attorney.
ask.
Thank you.
Charlie, you got a job to do there, okay?
I'm jotting it down.
Maybe he's created a database. If so, that would be easy, no, okay.
What are you thinking, Jim? Because maybe if they have 3 or more, then
So maybe we need to look at
I agree with you.
the actual fine after that.
I agree.
The fine is progressive.
Right,
It's already,
Yeah, that's
I
there.
think that's a good idea.
it's more than fair.
The fine is
It
progressive,
is progressive.
Now.
Now.
yeah.
Yes. The
But you know what?
question is,
Go ahead.
Is it being,
Yes, that's where I was going, let's remind him of
yeah,
that.
that's.
Because only he would know that for us to do that.
right.
So it's still a good question. Okay. Thank you. So Restore New York Grant 5, which for all intent and purposes is Grant 2. Do we want to move forward or there's a $500 non-refundable application fee?
This
There's other
is
costs.
for 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Barbara, you look like you're dying to write this grant.
I just believe in the potential it can provide for the village, I really do.
But Barbara, I want you to understand something, so do we. So do we. Every one of those words you just said, I couldn't have said it better. Or meant more, or meant it more.
I believe that too.
Believe me.
I do, I believe you, I believe you.
We we got a revitalization going on now. It started just with flowers, and it did just start with flowers, and now it's moving. And, you know, this is a revitalization, you know?
What I ask
But
you as a board and us as a community to realize that, yes, this is sort of odd that it's public, private, but what this will do, it's not flowers, it's not, this is rebuilding the buildings themselves. And the advantage for us is that it will help attract investors and business owners to come here and open businesses, because there will be upgraded heating that works. There will be a roof replaced, windows replaced. The new prospective owners won't come in here and say, oh my God, there's so much work to do here, forget it. This is overwhelming. So what's good for the building owners, it is good for us as a community, because it will bring, the whole purpose of this grant is to revitalize the economy.
Barbara, you mentioned certain things that the grant can cover. Considering the fact that we struggle to stay under the 2% tax cap, if the board were to decide to allow you to write this treacherous grant proposal, you know, speaking for myself, I would want us to limit it to the shell of the building that visually benefits the community. I have some problems spending public dollars on internal repairs. Yeah, it's great to do a whole building, but I think there has to be a perceived public benefit for us to pile on.
So in other words, things like roof repair, window replacement, that,
That would be within the realm of possibility, but I don't think it's our responsibility. We struggle to keep the heating system here repaired. I don't think it's beholding on us to do private heating systems and internal repairs. Things that safeguard the historic fabric of the exterior of the building, that benefits the community. And I'd be really supportive of that. And it would keep the dollar numbers down to a low roar.
you feel that way even if the building owners would take on the 10% themselves?
Well, that's fine. But I think that the size of this project for 11 buildings is,
It's honestly going to have to be whittled down, because
Yeah.
as I said, there are 3 buildings alone that could qualify for $3.5 million, and there's only $1 million
available.
available. So, yeah, we will have to whittle down, again, based on what the economic impact for the community is. Has to be a main criteria, because that's what the grant is all about. And we as a community, what we need. Also listening to the building owners.
Okay, let me say, we're beating this now, in my opinion. Let's don't forget, $1 million is $100,000. Now, we're saying we can't come up with 50 for the first one. Now we're gonna get committed to 100.
But this one, you said the match can be paid by the private property
The
owners.
private.
Well, that,
Yes.
all due respect, that's what's being said tonight.
I have
You
that in
know,
writing,
I know.
Do they realize that?
yes.
And you think that if it goes over $25,000, that the building owners are gonna have no problem in paying that?
They need to know that.
I know they know that, but are they going to say, okay, I have no problem paying this?
We
And-
need to get that clear from
Right.
building owners
I know,
before
and
we
see
proceed.
Barbara, the problem that I'm having with this whole thing is nothing's clear. everything's afoot, or maybe this might happen, or we could possibly talk about this. I'm not hearing anything solid.
Well,
And that's, I'm just saying for myself now, for myself, on a project, I want to hear what's solid. I want to hear solid numbers, I want to hear that this project's gonna move forward, and this is in writing, and this is a contract, and this is stamped and sealed, and that's the way it is. But this doesn't sound like this at all to me.
There is actual paperwork, and I can forward you the link to the grant guidelines and the paperwork, even I can forward you the application, which is now available, and I, have actually started filling it out.
I'm sorry to stop you, but again, we're going into two, but we're still talking about one, and then we're going from one to two.
I'm only talking about two right now.
Okay, but I'm still worried about one.
Well, can we separate them for a minute though? Because I'm seeking clarification with the state and have in writing from them on Friday.
I understand it, Barbara,
And-
but you're
and
asking for
they-
something tonight, though.
And you know what, Barbara,
Approval to go with
one more
five.
point, one more point. You're calling the state. That's fine, anybody can call the state. I'm calling the state. I have an attorney calling the state. And we're getting all different answers. We need to, no, I have things that you never said. I don't wanna go through the whole list now. I think that I also think whether it's 1, 2, or 3, that has to stop. We all have to be in the same room when we make phone calls. And I don't mind that.
I agree.
I've committed to meeting with you and Olga at least once a month. And if something special comes up that can't wait till our meeting, I meet. I meet, that's what I do, I meet.
And that's what we
All
want
right,
to do too.
so we gotta, I think that, I'm suggesting that we stop the phone calls and we make them together. That's just a suggestion. Go ahead.
Okay, at this stage, Barbara is asking for permission to write the grant proposal. Within that grant proposal, you can say specifically that the match will be paid by the private property owners. Is that correct?
When they sign the permission, the affidavit of permission, what I have in writing at this point is that, and perhaps our village attorney could help with this, a written statement that the owners would also sign that they understand this.
Yes, good point.
As long as the proposal makes it clear
Yes.
that the match is coming from the private sector, would that help?
Well, are you saying that, I don't know, if you're saying this, I guess, I'm concerned that the village taxpayer doesn't have to come up with any money
Exactly.
for any part of this.
Yeah, so
Otherwise, do my
entire
house.
match. Yeah, exactly, people are gonna say that.
I'm sure they're
Residences-
saying that already.
Yeah, that's not on the table.
Do
It's
my
gotta
house.
be-
Right,
It's
right,
gonna serve a public benefit, and.
right.
Now, there is money by letting this go forward tonight that has to be spent by the village.
$500.
Well, there's $500, $200 for publication of notices. Soon an engineer is gonna have to get involved. You know what that means. We're already involving our attorney. So let's just, this is hard. Sounds like I'm against it. I'm not against it. But I am against spending taxpayers' money on the project.
Yes, we have
I really
two-
am.
We have two safeguards, one that was just discussed, and also different than the previous one. We can also build into this the cost of engineering, which I have been told, not just told, but it's in writing.
Right, so that can be paid out of the grant money,
Yes, it's just a matter of if you're
What can?
doing
engineering.
engineering. It's just a matter of if you in the end have 5 buildings, do we just across the board divide up the cost of engineering by 5, or,
We're talking about the possibility of the village taxpayer, who's suffering right now, spending money at the Pentagon Federal Credit Union. You're not serious. You're not serious. Wait a minute. You have the Masons Lodge building down. You have some of these other corporations, I don't know what buildings they are. Michael Graber? So the village taxpayers will have to foot some of that?
For his commercial building, for the commercial property.
Do we do a roll call on this? Is that what we're doing for this vote? Or do we-
I will.
Well, let's-
All right, we got it. Any more questions, or, Jim?
Yeah, so Barbara, you said you would write in that the engineering fees would also be able to come out of the grant. What about our attorney, costs as we get proxy letters together from, and things like that? Can that money also come out of the grant?
In my experience with helping other villages write grants and receive grants, a very big one from USDA for the replacement of the water system. And it was a very detailed grant, and included in the grant was the cost of engineering, the cost of attorneys, legal fee, and all of that. That was calculated upfront based on the knowledge of what it was gonna cost to do the project. And so a certain percentage was allocated for the engineering fees, for the attorney fees, et cetera. There were a lot of engineering fees and attorney fees, but occasionally I would have to get involved. But anyway, generally, that's how grants are written. I'm not familiar with this grant.
Well, Restore number 1 wasn't written that way.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that either, but the other thing is, and Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, generally, the grant applications are very, very specific. They tell you what the money can be spent on, how it can be spent, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not aware that many of them can be negotiated or finagled. I don't mean that in a bad way, but, you know, if a grant wants a community to put in its own skin, it's either gonna be money or it's gonna be in kind. It sounds like, according to what Barbara is saying, is that in this particular case with Grant 2, a property owner who wants to participate would have to pony up.
Right.
That's all I can really say at this point.
Which is correct. It's not because Empire State is requiring that, but if that's what the village requires,
All
Empire
right.
State will
All right,
accept that.
all right, we gotta go here. You're ready to do whatever you wanna do. Is there any motion to move forward on Restore New York number, I will call it what it really is, number 5?
I make a motion as long as the legality is written within the contract for business owners and for lawyer fees and engineering fees.
Would you entertain saying that it doesn't cost the village taxpayers anything?
Yeah, we can't afford to have the taxpayers pay for this.
Go ahead.
Can
Go
we
ahead.
discuss it? Is there a motion on the floor?
There's a motion on the floor, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I'll
Go ahead.
second it for purposes of discussion. Can we cut the number of buildings down? Because there are some that I don't think really will make that dramatic enhancement of Main Street.
Well, then I would welcome comments. I mean, there will be a public hearing too, but yes, and where Olga and I are is, we're thinking it might be better to, with what money we can get or do get, to put into doing a few buildings well, rather than,
I think there needs to be greater focus in what we apply for.
All right, there's a motion and a second, Charlie?
Yeah, I'll second.
Could you read the motion?
Well, from what I heard from Mr. Alward, it would be to move forward with the application for the Restore New York grant with the round 5, as long as the engineering and attorney fees can be incorporated into the application.
And business owners sign the agreement that they will pick up
Okay?
added costs.
And, I
And
believe,
no cost to the village.
at no cost to the village taxpayers
Right.
on Restore number 5.
Mhm.
Except there will be a cost right now if we pass this of $500, of at least $700. Okay, just so we're clear on that.
You want a roll call?
Yep.
Trustee Alward,
Aye.
trustee Livesey,
Nay.
trustee Ramus,
Nay.
trustee Murphy,
Aye.
Mayor D'Onofrio.
Nay. Okay. Next on the agenda is bills and claims for fiscal year 17-18, $139,675.47. I think the bills were reviewed downstairs. I have a motion to pay.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Ramus, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Murphy, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, board comment, real quick. Tomorrow's election day, go out and vote, but always with election day is the election day dinner at the Church of the United Methodist Church of the Highlands. Correct, editor?
Yes,
And 4 to 5 is takeout,
yes,
and 5 to 6:30 is sit-down dinner.
yes.
Okay. The board wants to thank the Girl Scouts for the effort they put into Trunk or Treat. Is that his Trunk or Treat? Which I went to for the first time this year, and I was so impressed. I thought people went down to Rite Aid and bought Halloween pictures and put them in their trunk, and that's not what I saw. There was actually, God bless, there was actually themes, and these people did a lot of work. So the board wants to thank the Girl Scouts for that. And then last Saturday, on the 28th of October, there was a group of O'Neill students who came to me, wanted something, wanted to do some cleanup, so I had them rake Memorial Park, which needed to be done. And so they did it, and we want to thank them. I'm done. Brian?
Yeah, Gary, you still with us?
Yeah.
Oh, good. On Cooks Lane,
Yeah.
some people came to me and asked, is it possible to send out a notice saying cars parked on one side so that the street sweeper can do a good job there? I went down there and there seems to be some litter in Cooks Lane. And the other one was there's a structure that's falling down, but I don't know who owns that. Is it a garage?
On the
That's
left.
something that the building department have to handle.
Okay. Who notifies the building department?
Charlie could.
Any,
I do.
Madam, I can say that.
liaison.
Okay. Is it possible to get a street sweeper coming down one and then the other so we can get the street cleaned?
I know it won't be for a couple of weeks because we're gonna start the paving
Okay.
project tomorrow. So we're
It's
gonna have
pretty-
weekend.
Pretty dirty, to be honest. Looks like.
Cooks Lane stuff.
Yep. Thank you.
What's that?
Yeah.
Merv?
I got nothing.
Jimmy? No, you know what? Barbara,
Oh, okay.
beauty before.
Go ahead, Sam.
Age. Some very good news. I have given Gary a heads up on this because I think he will be the point of contact. This year is the year of the tree for Rotary International and the West Point Highland Falls Rotary Club. We have made a commitment to increase the budget for trees. Farrell Patrick has led the charge. We've been doing a lot of work around the village. Farrell has put in trees, flowering trees on the school property. And we now, thanks to Farrell and Ponce Espinoza, both veterans, we've gotten an incredible deal on a new plum tree to replace the one that was just removed in Lady Cliff Park, and 2 oak trees that were removed on the median strip. It's about $1,500 worth of trees. And what I would like from the village board is support for Gary to provide someone to help us identify where these trees can go, especially in that median strip where it will be safe to dig, because there are wires up there.
Absolutely. Yes, Gary knows where the wires are, if he doesn't, we'll find out. Because there are wires there, like you say, and that'll be good. We took the 2 dead trees down, now we're gonna put 2 new ones in, and that's great, and then a couple other trees. So, you know, I've talked about trees, we're gonna put trees on the sidewalk up at the north end when we do the new sidewalks next year, and again, this is all part of everything that this board's trying to do.
But there's a little bit of urgency here. We want to get the trees this week, because they really need to go in the next 2 to 3 weeks to take before the frost.
You gonna dedicate a tree to anybody?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. These 2 were not purchased with a dedication in mind, but the Rotary has been talking about encouraging community people to dedicate trees and help us reforest, so to speak, because like Holy Innocents has lost 11 really substantial trees just since Reverend Judy has been here. So we've been losing trees at a good clip.
In that program, we'll call it a program, the village board, I would recommend to the village board that next year when we start putting these nice trees in the ground, under the sidewalk, that
You should.
we get people to,
Yeah, dedicate it.
in memory of, or however
Yeah.
people wanna do
Yeah,
it.
that'd be nice.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you, Charlie. So, Brian will, I'm throwing jobs around here, Brian will work with Gary on that, so communicate, you or Farrell, communicate on, so Gary can get it ready.
Well,
Not get it ready, but find out where the wires are.
yeah,
Okay.
and we've got a couple people from Rotary
Great.
who will even help dig.
Don't hit wires.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Thank you, Charlie. That's a great effort. That's really good. Jimmy?
All right. So I was at the town board meeting and a couple of things that were brought up there. One's about solar panels in the village, and they asked if I was working on some of that. And I do have a solar energy template here that I'd like the board to take a look at, and our attorney. And I'd like to hopefully get this enacted. I am 110% for solar, but I'm worried about the decommission of the panels in the future. And I just wanna make sure that we get something in our code book that can take care of that, guys.
Yep.
So I will make copies of this and get it into your
Sounds good.
mailboxes downstairs, and I'll give a
Thanks.
copy to the attorney.
Thank you.
So we can tweak whatever provisions in there, and then get moving on that. Because the town also asked to look at whatever we get done, so they can adopt it into theirs, so we're not gonna have so much confusion in our code books that we have now. Also, O&R, some of the lights. You know, I sent this out to all the board members numerous times about the 7 lights that O&R is gonna replace for free. It's gonna bring, no pun intended, new light into the village. And we're gonna start at Thayer Thayer Gate, and work our way down just past the park. And what I used was their guide to replace with the same wattage that is utilized now, and will give us the same lumens. Those have been picked out, and as noted that everybody's not gonna like the new light because it's like art, right? But that's okay. You know, I mean, we'll get used to it, and once it goes all the way down Main Street, I think it'll blend in a lot better.
Just as long as it doesn't look like, well, dare I say it's New Rochelle, who replaced all of them with 4,000 lumens, and everything looks like a prison yard.
Well, you know, I mean, and it's something that we probably need to speak with the building department about also. I did notice there was a apartment building in the village that put up some new security lighting, and it seems like there's fugitive light spilling onto many of the adjoining property owners. So, you know, some shields on it, you know, would probably be nice, or if they could turn them down. I know there was a big thing that was brought up about, especially at the old guard, with the fugitive light. So, dark sky lighting, is a wonderful thing. But, we can talk to Bruce about that, and I can talk to you after the meeting at which location. And also, I don't know if everybody has this, but it's a pricing review guide that can give us some insight. And again, I'll make copies of this and put it into your boxes for charging, at the electric, vehicle charging station. And this was provided by our attorney. So it's just a template, we need to take a look at it so we can be prepared, to come up with a monetary figure. One last thing, so I asked down there also about $125,000, and I was told, you know, that I need to go to Mr. Scoofus's office about this $125,000 that was committed to Roe Park. I asked at the last meeting about this, and nobody seemed to know if that was an additional $125,000, or if it was going to be the same $125,000 that was allocated for streets and sidewalks behind Village Hall. And that was done back, I believe, in January. There was talks, remember, Barbara? You were talking with...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, with that being said, it is the same money. And instead of doing the streets and sidewalks on Center Street, Schneider Avenue, Prospect, and Sweezy, the money's gonna go over to Roe Park. And in my opinion, I just think that that money would have been better spent, fixing the streets, behind Village Hall. So, you
Now,
know,
I was told when I asked that we did not apply in time for the monies, and that the grant was never really applied for, and messages were sent to us, and they weren't responded to, and so they went to the park.
so how could it, if we didn't apply for the grant, how could we still get the grant?
Well, I guess it was a lack of interest then, is what.
On the original proposal, Scoofus's office never got a response back, so he,
So he applied for the $125,000 and allocated it to Roe Park instead of streets and sidewalks on Snyder Center, Prospect, and Sweezy.
well,
I'll ask him, I'll stop in his office tomorrow. So he feels that it was better to put it at Roe Park.
well, it was better to use it locally than to lose it.
Well, we're not losing it because obviously he
Right.
applied and he got it for there. So my point again is, he felt it was better for that money to be spent at Roe Park than the streets.
No,
the
he's
sidewalks.
saying
I
that
got
we
the
didn't apply.
impression that we
He's
didn't
saying we
ask.
didn't apply for it. I asked the question.
he-
But we're still getting it now.
for
Or is
the
that a
park.
different grant?
No, this is for the park. He offered,
He said that since there was no response back, rather than lose the money, he'd give it to Roe Park to enhance our village.
Well, that's my point. I didn't hear anything from him, and obviously, if he feels, and that's what you're telling me, he feels that Roe Park deserves it more than the streets and sidewalks of Center, Schneider, and
No,
Prospect.
that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that he's saying that the village did not respond. Text was sent, no one responded about the money to be used for sidewalks
Did
and
you
lights.
get that text?
No,
Neither did I. Did you get that text, bro?
You know, listen, the only thing I wanna say about this is that money is gonna go into the Village of Powell Falls. The park up there, you can't even bounce a basketball on a basketball court, literally, I'm not making this up. It's that bad with cracks up there. The pool is in very bad condition up there. So, you know, it's,
Have you driven down Prospect lately?
they're both, like, again,
The walls are falling down
No, no, no.
into our street.
no, again, they're both bad, and I wish there was $250,000.
Me too, and don't get me wrong, I was,
But the
like I
point-
said, I
the-
praise
the
them for
point-
bringing them
The point is for myself, I mean, I'm just, for myself, I go to that park every day, Roll Park, every day. And I noticed something about Roll Park that's happening up there. Kids don't even play basketball up there anymore. I don't blame them, it's that bad up there. They're playing at the school down here, okay? During the summertime, and I noticed from the pool, and I noticed from when I was on the town board that pool's had problems up there. And there's other issues that are up at that park. I'm gonna give the mayor here a lot of credit in that park. That park was brought up. It brightened this whole community. And right now, it's got some shadows on it, okay? So we gotta keep that bright up there for everybody. And I know the streets are bad, and I know Mearns is bad, and I know there's some other streets that are bad. But these are all projects that we gotta tackle. But again, I'm grateful for the $125,000. I'm grateful that it's gonna go to Roe Park. And we as a board will have to look at Prospect and these other streets and say, okay, how are we gonna get money for this?
Did anybody get a memo from Scoofus's office regarding the sidewalks? No? No?
I don't, I mean, I would think I would remember.
And Brian, just so you know, I mean, you can recall from the last meeting, I praised it.
Yep.
You know,
I'm
and
gonna
if we
call
were
him.
getting two, even better.
Right.
But, you
I'll
know,
call him and ask him, who did you
just-
send the number to?
just in, like I said, in my opinion, you know, I drive down, like Mr. Livesey said, he's at Roe Park every day. Well, I drive down Mearns,
Yeah, you see it too, yep.
not only Mearns, but, I come down Sweezy and Prospect every day. And I go up Schneider
Yeah.
Avenue, and the residents stop me and they ask, when are we gonna address this? I mean, there's some sidewalks up there that have sunken down, where we really need to address this, so
So let's
I-
make
I
it a
would- I would love-
priority.
I would love for the board, you know, in their spare time, take a ride up on Prospect,
Oh, I have to?
and just take a look at the wall that's falling down there, amongst other things. And the past administration even brought that up, about that wall. So it's not something that just happened, it's been a problem for a while.
Absolutely, I agree.
That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Public comment.
I'm sorry. I know you guys, and I will totally be brief this time. First of all, another opportunity for us, and I will speak on behalf of the Highland Falls Economic Development Corporation, and that we've been working on this. I've been working with the DEC and Nature Conservancy, which is an international organization that used to be known for buying lands and protecting animals and wetlands, et cetera, but they are getting much more involved in the awareness and need for climate-smart living. They are participating along with the DEC Hudson River Estuary Program and are offering to do a workshop. They've just been approved for a round of 4, to work with 4 communities. They've worked with Cortland, Peekskill, Haverstraw, Stony Point, and they're interested in joining with us, the town, Palisades Interstate Park, Bear Mountain. And what we stand to gain with this is basically strategic planning and reporting with respect to water management, watershed management, wastewater issues, environmental concerns with water. And it would do 2 things for us as well. We would get credit as part of our commitment to the Climate Smart Communities Program, which is part of the NYSERDA program. And we would also get credit in terms of any marina or waterfront restoration, the state work that needs to be done on that. So the workshop, they're looking for a workshop, maybe somewhere in January, and asked me to start discussions with that and moving forward on who to participate, et cetera. So that's that. Then, if I may make a comment, one which relates to me and one for James Scoofus, he's not here, but, so I can't totally speak for him. But I know for me, in all respect, with all respect to the newly elected officials this spring, I stepped back and waited to be invited. Not that I certainly didn't withhold anything or delay anything, but for example, with Restore One, I trusted and looked forward to communications that were at a certain point and needed follow-up. We're getting to those points of follow-up now, which is wonderful. So I just felt a little, I feel like I need to speak up for myself in terms of where things are now. And in terms of Assemblyman Scoofus, I do know in that I was involved in this to a certain point also, and this is hearsay perhaps, but in terms of my work with him on that.
Well, I'm not trying to be rude, but you did say you're gonna be brief.
Okay, well,
Okay,
he did.
I'm not trying to be
okay,
rude.
Okay, well, I'm sorry if I'm not the briefest person.
Okay, but you don't have much time left. Because we have executive session after this.
And this gentleman wants to go.
Yes.
There's another person here, so.
Very short, very short.
No,
Okay,
I know.
But I
One-
won't make my other point.
No, make the point, yeah.
What I was told by Assemblyman Scoofus and his office is that they did send some kind of communication here to follow up on what had been laid out and move forward. I was told that they never received a response. I can't explain what happened to communication, but it's another one of these things to me that was at a certain point and somehow
All right.
is
All right, all right, but, okay, and I appreciate all that, and I'm happy to hear about that workshop, because I know that we are one of a climate control community, and if this will help us out with the marina, that's great. Number two, the fact of the matter is, and it's been said different ways up here, we are getting $125,000. So that's all, that's the deal, okay, so, and Jimmy, you're right, I've talked about the streets, there's been in the last few years, there's been no plan on doing streets. For the public to know that the street paving that we all talked about and approved will be starting tomorrow. There'll be milling, and we're gonna have new streets. And definitely, a couple of months ago, the plan was for that section of Prospect, was gonna be done in-house. And the time got away from us, and I knew that was gonna happen. We started talking about paving, and I started thinking about October, and it's the end of August, but that's the way, I know this, and so.
And we had a sewer break and
We had
water
different
breaks.
things going on, so
things that-
those streets are definitely, I'm committed to that, we are committed to that.
Then it's the end of July or June,
Yeah.
then you got July 4th.
Yeah, it's crazy, and everyone knows that, but definitely those streets are gonna get done. To end it, we're getting $125,000. Mr.
Hi,
McCarthy.
my name's Kevin McCarthy. When I put the bid in, I added 2 more trees. I don't know if you saw them or not. The one's on Center, in the little park in Center Street, it's a hemlock.
You mentioned that to me.
And it's, if you don't take it down, it's gonna kill the child. All right, so it's gotta come down tomorrow, or the next, or now, because that's the way the school does it, that's the way the town does it. And you have to take it serious, because it's gonna T-bone right on the swing set, okay? And I put another one at Roe Park, you walk by it all the time,
I
right?
know, I see it.
Just get it down
I
before
know.
we get sued.
His dog takes a pee there
Yeah,
every
but-
night.
But
It's
the
a
whole
landmark
thing
park.
is, when you
It's
see something like that, you just gotta get it down.
Okay.
Because we're gonna be in big trouble, And nobody wants to explain to a parent
Nope.
how the tree fell on their kid,
Why?
Yeah.
I think you should, Dan.
okay? That's all I have to say, and,
You waited here for that?
yeah.
You could have done something back there and I would have.
No, I got it, I do have one thing to say. Hudson, New York was rebuilt by Eric Galloway. He owns 90% of the town, right? I work for the man, he says, how high I jump, right? He rebuilt that whole town. So remember that name, look him up, and he's got deep pockets, but you gotta be nice to him. because the people in that town weren't nice to him. He pulled out of there. He's going over to Garrison. He's building the big castle. So you might want to be, put that name out there a little bit, because
What's his name?
Eric Galloway.
Galloway.
Be nice to him.
I'll have dinner with him real soon, you
Yeah,
watch.
he schmoozes good,
Galloway?
all right? Galloway, yeah.
Would we
Eric
like to
Galloway.
build a castle?
Well,
over
you go
here?
to the Thayer Hotel, look across the Thayer Hotel, there's a big castle there, all brick. That's what he does.
Grand Marshal.
He, he's,
That's 5 years.
somebody somebody you might wanna look at, all right? That's about all I can tell you.
And Mr. McCarthy, I appreciate you sticking around, letting us know about those 2 trees. We need more people to step up to the plate to let us know where there's dangerous situations.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's greatly
My
appreciated.
road in front of my house, people speed all the time. Well, every once in a while I see a big army truck and it slows everybody down. That's about all I have to
Well,
say.
while we're still talking trees, could the
Good luck,
village
man.
office send
I'll vote for
a
you, even though I don't like
note
voting too much, I'll vote
to
for you.
DOT asking them to take down the dead tree right at the entrance and see if they do it, because
They're
it
not
is
gonna
there.
take it down.
I know they're not, but let's give it a shot.
That'll take 6 months.
Is that-
They'll get it out.
Okay, that's good to know, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll follow up on these 2 trees that Mr. McCarthy just brought up.
Executive session.
Yeah, I want to go into,
In front of my house.
any other public comment?
I don't know, you guys used to do it. They used to
Uh,
run the numbers, people speeding.
We need to go into executive session for personnel and and
Advice.
advice of counsel. Thank you.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you.